This woman is a thief. The words exploded across the ballroom like a bomb going off. 300 pairs of eyes turned toward her, judging, condemning, destroying her with their stares. The man she'd spent 10 days falling for stood beside her, watching his business empire crumble in real time. His uncle's face twisted with rage. The investors were already walking away. Everything was collapsing. But here's what none of them knew. This humiliation. This scandal. This absolute disaster. It all started 10 days earlier with a desperate millionaire, an unusual proposal, and 2 million naira that would change everything. His name was Segun. Her name was Amara. And what they thought was a simple business arrangement was about to expose a predator, destroy a powerful man, and prove that sometimes the most real love begins with the fakest lie. This is their story. Before we dive into this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell to stay updated with more incredible African stories that will leave you speechless. Now, let's get into it. Segun sat in his late father's office, staring at the mahogany desk that still carried the faint smell of his old man's cigars. At 34, he had worked like a machine to expand his father's small Lagos manufacturing company into a West African empire worth millions. He tripled their revenue in just 3 years. He'd made deals that other businessmen could only dream about. Yet here he was, being told it wasn't enough. His uncle, Baba Lonra, adjusted his flowing agboda and delivered the words that would destroy everything Segun thought he knew about success. The board has made a decision, Segun. His uncle's voice was firm, final. Before we finalize this merger with the Taiwanese investors, you must prove you have stability. A family man shows commitment. These investors are traditional people. They want to see that the man running their partner company has roots, not just ambition. Segun felt his jaw clench so hard his teeth hurt. Uncle, my work speaks for itself. I've built this company from. Your father, God rest his soul, was married at 28, Baba Lonra continued, completely ignoring his protest. The media gala is in 10 days. Bring your woman. Show us you're not just a businessman, but a man who understands balance. The investors will be there. Their decision will partly rest on this. After his uncle left, Segun slumped in his chair, running his hands over his face until his skin burned. He had dated before, of course he had. But relationships withered and died under the weight of his 16-hour workdays and constant travel. The few women who tolerated his schedule eventually packed their bags, tired of being an afterthought in his perfectly organized but emotionally empty life. 10 days. He had 10 days to produce a girlfriend. The first few days were an absolute disaster that would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic. He tried reconnecting with his ex-girlfriend, Funk. She laughed so hard when he called that she started choking on her drink. Segun, I'm engaged, she wheezed between gasps. And even if I wasn't, you think I'd help the man who forgot my birthday 3 years in a row? The man who sent his driver to pick me up for our anniversary dinner because he was in a meeting. He'd attempted the church singles fellowship his secretary suggested. Bad idea. Terrible idea. The women there smelled his desperation like expensive perfume and immediately began planning weddings in their heads. Brother Segun, Sister Peculiar cornered him after service, her eyes gleaming with dangerous hope. What is your vision for family? How many children does the Lord want you to have? I've been praying for a husband in the manufacturing business. He practically ran out of there. The gym was his final attempt. His friend Yemi had insisted that Lagos fitness centers were full of beautiful, ambitious women looking for successful men. So Segun bought a brand new tracksuit that still smelled like the plastic packaging it came in, and stepped into a world he clearly didn't belong to. Within 10 minutes, he was holding dumbbells like a confused chicken, breathing like a broken generator after just 5 push-ups. The only woman who spoke to him was a trainer who politely informed him he was using the leg press machine completely wrong. Sir, she said, try not to laugh, Are you sure you've exercised before? Segun left the gym feeling more single than when he'd arrived. If singleness had a certificate, those fitness enthusiasts would have stamped it on his forehead in permanent ink. He sat in his car afterward, sweating like he'd just fought for Nigeria's independence, staring at his reflection in the rearview mirror like it belonged to a stranger who had lied to his family without thinking. So this is how a 34-year-old CEO will be searching for love everywhere, he muttered to himself. By day 7, panic was eating him alive from the inside out. That's when his friend Yemi dragged him to an art exhibition in Lekki, one of those trendy cultural spaces where Lagos creatives gather to see and be seen. You need to clear your head, man, Yemi insisted. Stop thinking like a businessman for 5 minutes. Segun wasn't there for art. He was there because his world was falling apart and he was running out of time. That's when he saw her. Amara stood in front of a vibrant painting, her head tilted as if the artwork was whispering secrets only she could hear. She wore a simple Ankara dress that somehow looked more elegant than all the designer outfits surrounding her. Her natural hair was styled in a beautiful halo of twist, and when she smiled at something the artist said, Segun felt something shift in his chest, something that had been locked away for years. "Who is that?" he asked Yemi, unable to look away. His friend followed his gaze and grinned knowingly. "Amara John. She's an actress. Does theater mostly, some small TV roles. Very talented, but you know how Nollywood is, if you don't play ball with the right producers, you struggle to get the big roles." Segun watched her navigate the room with practiced grace. Her laughter was genuine, but her eyes carried a tiredness that reminded him of his own reflection, the look of someone who'd been fighting too long for something that seemed just out of reach. An actress. Someone who performed for a living. Someone who could play a role. The idea hit him like lightning striking twice in the same place. He approached her as the crowd began to thin, his heart hammering against his ribs. "Excuse me, I don't mean to intrude, but I saw you admiring the Oseji piece earlier. Do you collect?" Amara turned, and up close, he noticed the small scar above her eyebrow that somehow made her more beautiful, not less. It spoke of stories untold, of strength earned the hard way. "Collect." She laughed softly, and the sound was like music he'd forgotten he loved. "I can barely afford to eat regularly. I admire from a distance and imagine what my walls would look like if life were different." Her honesty hit him like a physical blow. In his world of calculated responses and careful presentations, her raw truth was shocking. "I'm Segun," he offered his hand. "Amara." Her handshake was firm, confident. "And you are?" "Someone with an unusual business proposal." They found a quiet table in the gallery's cafe, surrounded by the low hum of artistic conversations and clinking coffee cups. Segun took a deep breath and explained his situation, editing nothing. He needed someone to pose as his girlfriend for 10 days, rehearsals, the gala, a few public appearances. In exchange, he would pay her 2 million naira. Amara's eyes went wide as dinner plates. 2 million. "I understand it's unconventional." "Unconventional." She laughed, but there was no humor in it, just disbelief mixed with something that looked like desperation. "It's insane. You want to hire me to lie to your family and business partners." "I'm hiring you to perform," Segun corrected gently, leaning forward. "Isn't that what you do? You told me acting jobs are scarce. This is a 10-day role with very generous payment. No physical expectations, just attendance and believable affection." He watched her face cycle through emotions like a movie playing in fast forward, shock, suspicion, consideration. Then something softened in her expression, something that looked like resignation mixed with the kind of desperation that makes people do things they never thought they would. "My mother needs surgery," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Kidney stones. The government hospital says 6 months wait, maybe longer. Private hospital says 2 million naira, and she can have it next week." She looked directly at him, and he saw the weight of impossible choices in her eyes. Why does this matter so much to you? Segun was surprised by his own honesty when he answered. Because my father built something beautiful, and I won't let it collapse because of outdated ideas about what makes a man worthy. And because if I'm going to do this, I'd rather work with someone who sees it as a transaction, not an opportunity to get something more. Amara was silent for a long moment that stretched like eternity. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for her water glass. Then she extended her hand across the small table. 10 days. Professional arrangement. I'll need half upfront. Done. As they shook hands, neither of them knew they were sealing a deal that would save them both in ways money could never measure. What neither of them anticipated was how dangerously good they'd become at pretending, and how impossible it would be to tell where the performance ended and reality began. Over the next 3 days, something magical and terrifying happened. Amara approached their fake relationship like a theater production, asking detailed questions about Segun's life, his habits, his childhood memories. She created a backstory so believable that even Segun sometimes forgot it wasn't real. We met at the book festival in Abeokuta, she recited as they sat in his living room, Chinese takeout containers scattered between them like evidence of their growing intimacy. You were buying Achebi, I was buying Adichie. We both reached for the same copy of Half of a Yellow Sun, and you insisted I take it. Then you asked me to coffee to discuss it. And you said. I said only if you'd actually read it and weren't just trying to impress me. She grinned, and the expression transformed her entire face. Which you were. Which I was, Segun agreed, smiling so wide his cheeks hurt. He'd smiled more in 3 days with Amara than in 3 months before meeting her. But it was the physical coaching that almost broke his resolve. When we're in public, you can't stand like we're in a business meeting, she instructed, stepping into his personal space until he could smell her perfume, something light and floral that made his head spin. Relax your shoulders. Here. She placed her hand on his chest, and Segun felt his heart betray him by racing like a teenager's. When you introduce me, your hand should rest here. She guided his palm to her waist, and the warmth of her skin through the thin fabric made his mouth go dry. Like this. His voice came out rougher than he intended, gravelly with warmth he had no right to feel. Amara looked up at him, and for a moment, just a moment, something electric passed between them. Something real and dangerous and absolutely forbidden given their arrangement. Then she stepped back quickly, her professional mask sliding into place like a curtain dropping. Exactly like that. But Segun caught the slight tremor in her hand as she reached for her water bottle. She'd felt it too. The shopping trip for her gala dress nearly destroyed him completely. At the high-end boutique in Lekki, Amara protested the expense until he reminded her it was part of the performance. When she emerged from the dressing room in an emerald gown that matched her eyes and hugged her curves like it had been designed specifically for her, Segun literally forgot how to breathe. Stop looking at me like that, she said, but her smile was shy, pleased. Like what? Like I'm not just playing a role. The moment hung between them, heavy with unspoken possibilities and dangerous what-ifs. Then the boutique attendant interrupted with alteration suggestions, and the spell shattered. That evening, as Segun dropped her off at her modest apartment in Suralere, Amara hesitated before getting out of the car. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why haven't you found someone real? A man like you, successful, relatively decent looking, she smirked teasingly, surely women are interested. Segun gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. I've been so focused on building my father's legacy that relationships felt like distractions from the mission. I told myself there would be time later for love, for family, for life. Then later became now, and I realized I'd built an empire but forgotten to build a life worth living. Amara's expression softened with something that looked like understanding mixed with sadness. That's the saddest thing I've heard someone say without crying. What about you? He countered. Why theater instead of Nollywood? Yemi said you could have much bigger roles if I slept with the right producers. Her laugh was bitter as medicine. I tried that part once. Almost. I was so hungry, so desperate for my big break. Then I looked in the mirror afterward and didn't recognize the woman staring back at me. Some prices are too high, even for dreams. After she left, Segun sat in his car for 20 minutes, feeling something crack open in his chest, something that had been frozen for years, melting under the warmth of her honesty. Finally, the night of the media gala arrived. The Eco Hotel's grand ballroom was a glittering showcase of Lagos power and wealth. Politicians mingled with business moguls, society wives displayed their latest jewelry, and the Taiwanese investor delegation observed everything with polite, calculating smiles. Amara arrived on Segun's arm looking like royalty. The emerald gown caught the light with every step, and her smile was so warm and genuine that even the skeptical board members began nodding their approval. So this is the woman who captured our Segun's heart, Bobalonra beamed, clasping Amara's hands between both of his. My dear, you are a blessing from God. He works too much. You will balance him, yes. I'll certainly try, sir, Amara replied with the perfect mix of respect and affection that spoke to her theater training. She slipped her hand into Segun's, and he squeezed it gently, whether from gratitude or something deeper, he wasn't sure anymore. The line between performance and reality had blurred beyond recognition. The evening unfolded like a perfect dream. Amara charmed the Taiwanese investors with her knowledge of art and culture. She laughed at exactly the right moments, touched Segun's arm with casual intimacy that looked completely natural, and played her role so flawlessly that Segun found himself wishing desperately that it wasn't a role at all. During dinner, she leaned close and whispered, "The man in the white agbada at table 5 hasn't stopped staring at me. Do you know him?" Segun followed her gaze and felt his stomach drop like a stone into dark water. Chief Beo Adenuga. One of Lagos's most powerful real estate moguls, a potential future investor, and a man whose reputation for ruthlessness was matched only by his charm in public. He's a business associate, Segun said carefully, every instinct screaming danger. Stay close to me. Amara's hand tightened on his beneath the white tablecloth, and he could feel her trembling slightly. But Chief Beo was already standing, already approaching their table with a smile that looked friendly but felt predatory. Segun, my boy. His voice boomed across the elegant space. I hear congratulations are in order. You finally settled down. Then his eyes landed on Amara, and something flickered across his face. Recognition. Then calculation. Then something that made Segun's blood turn to ice. Amara's grip on his hand became painful. And who is this beautiful? Chief Beo stopped mid-sentence, leaning closer like a predator catching a familiar scent. Wait. Amara. Amara Okonkwo. The blood drained from Amara's face so quickly Segun thought she might faint. I'm sorry, do we know each other? She managed, but her voice shook like leaves in a storm. Chief Beo's smile turned cruel, triumphant. Oh, we know each other very well. Though the last time I saw you, you were running out of my office after stealing $50,000 from my safe. The entire ballroom seemed to freeze. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Even the waiters paused in their service. Then Chief Beo turned to the gathering crowd, his voice rising with theatrical outrage. This woman is a thief. She worked as my personal assistant 3 years ago and robbed me blind. The words exploded across the ballroom like a bomb going off. Every eye in the room turned toward their table, 300 pairs of eyes, all judging, all condemning, all destroying her with their stares. That's a lie. Amara shot to her feet so quickly her chair scraped loudly against the marble floor. I never stole anything from you. Tears streamed down her face, her voice breaking with desperation and shame. Really? Chief Beo's eyebrows rose with mock surprise. Then why did you disappear the same night my money went missing? Why did you never answer to the police report I filed? The whisper started immediately, spreading through the crowd like wildfire. I knew something was wrong with her. Segun brought a criminal to the gala. Such a shame, and she seemed so nice. Amara looked around at the hundreds of judging faces, her breath coming in short gasps. Because you, she choked on the words, unable to finish with so many people watching, waiting for her confession. I can't do this. She ran, heels clicking frantically against the marble as she fled toward the exit, leaving behind a ballroom full of shocked whispers and Segun's world crumbling in real time. Segun moved to follow, but Baba Lonra gripped his arm with fingers like steel. Segun, what is this? His uncle's face was twisted with rage and betrayal. Who is this woman you brought to disgrace our family name? Uncle, I can explain. The investors are watching. Baba Lonra's voice carried across the silent ballroom. You've made us look like fools. This merger is finished. Everything your father built, destroyed because you couldn't even find a decent woman. The Taiwanese delegation was already standing, shaking their heads, gathering their things. Board members muttered among themselves, their faces showing disgust and disappointment. Years of work, generations of legacy, everything his father had dreamed of, all of it crashing down around him. Chief Beo stood in the center of it all, wearing a satisfied smile that made Segun's hands clench into fists. But in that moment of absolute destruction, something crystallized in Segun's mind. Something about Chief Beo's performance felt wrong. Too perfect. Too rehearsed. Like a man who'd done this before. Segun pulled his arm free from his uncle's grip and looked him straight in the eye. I'm sorry, uncle. But I have to go. And he ran after the woman who had just cost him everything, because somehow, losing everything felt less important than losing her. He found her in the parking lot, collapsed against his car, her perfect makeup streaked with tears and shame. When she saw him approaching, she tried to run again, but Segun caught her wrist gently. Let me go, she sobbed. I've ruined everything, your business, your reputation, your family's respect. I don't care about any of that right now, Segun said, and the truth of it shocked him. I care about what just happened in there. I care about you. Talk to me. Why would you want to hear anything I have to say? I'm exactly what he said I am. No. Segun's voice carried absolute certainty. The woman I've spent the last week with is not a thief. The woman who worried about her mother, who created beautiful stories, who made me laugh for the first time in years, that woman is not capable of what he accused you of. So tell me what really happened. And in his car, under the Lego stars, with his world burning around them, Amara told him the truth that would change everything they thought they knew about power, justice, and the price some people pay for refusing to be victims. What neither of them knew was that in 48 hours, the hunter would become the hunted, the accused would become the accuser, and Chief Beo would discover that he'd made one fatal mistake, he'd hurt the wrong woman in front of the wrong man. 3 years ago, desperate for money to save her dying mother, Amara had taken a job as Chief Beo's personal assistant. The pay was generous, the work straightforward, managing his calendar, organizing his files, handling his correspondence. Until the evening he called her into his office late, locked the door behind her, and made it crystal clear that her employment came with additional expectations. When she refused, he became violent. She fought him off and ran, her clothes torn, her dignity shattered, her faith in justice about to be destroyed completely. The next day, Chief Beo reported that $50,000 was missing from his office safe and filed a police report naming Amara as the thief. I had no proof of what he tried to do to me, Amara whispered in the darkness of Segun's car, her voice broken but steady. It was my word against one of the most powerful men in Lagos. I'm nobody, Segun. He's Chief Beo Adinuga. He has lawyers, connections, politicians in his pocket. She changed her phone number, dyed her hair, stopped using her real name for auditions. For 3 years, she'd been hiding, barely surviving, because he had destroyed her reputation with one calculated lie. "I've been living like a ghost," she continued, tears falling silently. "And now I've destroyed you too. The one person who saw me as more than a scandal or a transaction." Segun was quiet for a long moment, his mind racing through implications, connections, possibilities. Then he started the car. "Where are we going?" Amara asked. "To fix this," his voice was still wrapped in determination. "But I need you to trust me." What Amara didn't know was that Segun hadn't built a multi-million naira empire by accepting defeat. He'd built it by reading people, spotting inconsistencies, and finding leverage. And something about Chief Beo's performance tonight was bothering him like a splinter under his skin. Too theatrical. Too perfect. Too much like a man who'd done this exact thing before. Over the next 2 days, while his business world collapsed around him, the Taiwanese investors withdrew, board members demanded explanations, his uncle refused to take his calls, Segun did what he did best. He investigated. He hired Ngozi, Yemi's cousin who worked as a private investigator specializing in corporate cases. "Find everything on Chief Beo Adiniga," Segun instructed. "Especially around 3 years ago. And Ngozi, find other women who worked for him." "How far back do you want me to go?" "As far as it takes." What Ngozi uncovered over the next 48 hours made Segun's blood boil with a rage he'd never felt before. Chief Beo had a pattern. A system. A methodology so refined it had its own internal code name. Over the past decade, at least 7 young women had filed harassment complaints against him, all subsequently withdrawn after the women suddenly faced criminal accusations or devastating public scandals. Kemi Adebayo, a young lawyer who'd worked for his legal team, had tried to report his assault. Within a week, she was arrested for embezzling client funds. The charges were dropped after she agreed to leave Lagos permanently. Tolu Okafor, an architect who'd refused his advances during a project meeting, found her nude photos leaked across social media 3 days later. She'd never taken nude photos in her life, they were expertly altered, but her career was destroyed anyway. Funmi Williams, his former accountant, had disappeared entirely after threatening to expose him. Her family hadn't heard from her in 2 years. The pattern was always the same: refuse Chief Beo, face destruction. The $50,000 Amara allegedly stole. Bank records showed Chief Beo had withdrawn that exact amount himself the day before he reported it missing, depositing it in an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. But the most damning evidence came from Chief Beo's former driver, Toloni, who'd been fired 6 months ago and was bitter enough to talk. He still had his old work phone, and the messages from that period told a story that made Segun's hands shake with fury. One message, sent the morning after Amara escaped his office, read, "The Okonkwo girl refused me. Implement Protocol C, make it theft. Police report by morning." Protocol C. It had a name. Destroying women who refused him was so routine for Chief Beo that he'd systematized it like a business process. Ngozi also discovered something else that made Segun smile grimly. Chief Beo was currently under investigation by the EFCC for money laundering over 200 million naira, though he'd managed to keep it quiet through bribes and connections. The man was vulnerable, perhaps for the first time in his life. On the 3rd day after the gala disaster, Segun called an emergency board meeting. His uncle tried to block it, claiming Segun had lost all credibility, but Segun still held enough shares to force the issue. "This better be good, Segun," Baba Lonra warned over the phone. "The family name has suffered enough embarrassment." "Uncle," Segun replied quietly, "by the time this meeting is over, you'll understand who the real embarrassment is." As he hung up, Segun looked at the evidence spread across his desk: bank records, witness statements, phone records, victim testimonies. Chief Beo thought he'd destroyed Amara 3 years ago and finished the job 3 nights ago. He was about to discover that some fights don't end when the victim runs away. Sometimes they end when the victim finds the right person to stand with them. Sometimes they end with justice. The boardroom fell dead silent when Segun arrived with an entourage that nobody expected: Amara, looking nervous but determined, Ngozi carrying a briefcase full of evidence, and Mrs. Obayago, a lawyer whose reputation for destroying powerful men in court was legendary across Lagos. "What is the meaning of this?" Boba Lonra demanded, his voice thunderous. "Have you not embarrassed this family enough?" "Uncle, members of the board," Segun's voice was calm, but his eyes burned with purpose. "I've called you here because you deserve the truth. 3 years ago, Amara Okonkwo was sexually assaulted by Chief Beo Adinuga when she refused his advances. When she escaped, he framed her for a theft he himself committed." He nodded to Ngozi, who began distributing folders to each shocked board member. "I have bank records, witness testimony, and phone messages proving a pattern of abuse spanning an entire decade." As they opened the folders, faces changed from skepticism to shock to absolute disgust. "Chief Beo is also currently under EFCC investigation for laundering over 200 million naira, Segun continued, his voice growing stronger. "This is the man whose accusation made you question my judgment. This is the man whose word you took over mine." The room erupted in whispers and gasps. Uncle Lonra looked like he'd been slapped. "But I'm not finished," Segun said, turning to face Amara. "I brought Amara to that gala under false pretenses. She's not really my girlfriend. I hired her to play a role because I was told my competence wasn't enough, that I needed to perform stability for traditional investors." Amara looked at him in shock. He was confessing everything, risking even more. "I was wrong to do that," Segun's voice softened. "But in those 10 days, I learned something that changed my life forever." He looked back at the board, then at his uncle. "I learned that the person I was pretending to be, the man who made time for laughter, who valued human connection over contracts, who saw people instead of opportunities, that's who I should have been all along. That's the man my father raised me to be." The room was silent except for the gentle hum of air conditioning. "So here's my proposal," Segun continued. "You can accept my resignation, dissolve the company my father built, and let fear of scandal dictate our choices. Or we can do what my father taught me, stand for what's right, even when it costs us everything." Mrs. Obayago stood up, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "We are taking this to the authorities today. Chief Beo needs to face justice for what he's done to these women." "Agreed," Segun said firmly. "But first, Amara deserves a public apology and full exoneration. I'm prepared to use every resource this company has to clear her name and help other victims come forward." What happened next shocked everyone in the room. Boba Lonra stood slowly, walked across the room to where Amara sat, and did something that left her speechless. He knelt down in front of her. In Yoruba culture, an elder kneeling to a younger person was the most profound expression of humility possible. "My daughter," he said in Yoruba, then switched to English so everyone could understand. "I wronged you terribly. I believed a lie because it was easier than seeking truth. I condemned you without evidence because a powerful man pointed his finger. Please forgive this foolish old man." Amara helped him stand, tears streaming down her face. "Sir, you didn't know." "That's no excuse," he interrupted firmly. Then he turned to Segun, his eyes bright with pride. "Your father would be so proud. Not because of the business you've built, but because of the man you've become." 2 weeks later, Chief Beo's empire collapsed under the weight of investigation. 3 other women came forward with their stories, emboldened by Amara's courage. The media exploded with the scandal, but this time, Amara was the hero, not the villain. The Taiwanese investors returned, more impressed than ever. "We do business with people who honor truth and protect the innocent," their representative said. "Not people who hide from justice." But for Segun, the real victory came on a quiet Sunday evening 3 weeks later. He'd asked Amara to meet him at the same art gallery where they'd first spoken. She arrived in simple jeans and a blouse, her natural beauty needing no enhancement. "I have something for you," Segun said, handing her an envelope. Inside was a check for 2 million naira and a receipt from the gallery. "The painting you loved," he explained. "The Osage piece. It's yours. And the payment we agreed on. You fulfilled your contract perfectly." Amara stared at the check, then looked at him with eyes full of questions. "So this is goodbye?" "That depends." "On what?" Segun took a deep breath. "On whether you'd consider a new arrangement. One without contracts or performances. One where I take you to dinner not because I need you to play a role, but because I can't imagine my evenings without your laughter. Where we visit galleries because we want to, not because we have to." Amara stepped closer. "I have conditions." "Anything?" "You have to come watch my theater performances. Even the small ones in venues where the air conditioning doesn't work." Segun laughed, reaching for her hands. "Front row, every single time. And you have to actually read the books you claim to love. I'm going to quiz you. Deal?" And, her voice became tender, "You have to let me see the real you. Not the CEO, not the perfect son, just Segun. Even the broken parts." He pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. "Especially the broken parts." 6 months later, Amara stood on the stage of the National Theatre, starring in Efuru, her first major role since her name was cleared. In the front row sat Segun, his mother, Uncle Lonra, and Amara's mother, all beaming with pride. As she delivered her final monologue, her eyes found Segun's. He mouthed 3 words that made her heart soar: "I love you." After the show, walking hand in hand through the Lagos nights, Amara asked, "Do you ever regret it? The scandal, the chaos, everything that's happened?" Segun stopped and turned to face her. "I regret that you were hurt. I regret that I almost let fear keep me from fighting for you. But regret hiring you." He smiled. "That was the best terrible decision I ever made." "How so?" "I hired an actress to pretend to love me," he said softly, "and ended up falling in love with the woman she really was.